On July 24 this year, Riordan posted another article on his website, and so far, this is the latest news we have on the upcoming PJO show on Disney+. In this video, I'll share and break down this letter to you guys. So without further ado, let's get started. Rick starts this post by showing this picture, which he captioned as, "Wildflowers near set somewhere in British Columbia." In the opening, Rick says this: "This summer, I seem to be logging more travel miles than Hermes. I'm back in Boston for a few days before Becky and I return to set in Vancouver." So, at this point, from the filming they've been going over since June 2, Rick returned to Boston probably for a bit of a break, and we're told that he's been moving a lot, which might be because of the shooting and recording they had for the show. Rick then says this: "We had been slowly learning the ropes of TV production, by which I mean we are getting lost less often, tripping over fewer chords, and becoming more adept at locating crafty, as the snack center is called on set, short for craft services. I'm told that if there was an Emmy for crafties, our crafty would win easily. As befits PJO TV, we have all the best snacks, and yes, some of them are blue." This part basically states that Rick is getting more used to the stuff they do on set, as he even admitted in one of the articles that this was his first time to be on this kind of project. And then, Rick goes on to thank and appreciate all the actors and crew who are part of this project, saying, "I have definitely developed an appreciation for how hard everyone works to get a TV show made. Every day, hundreds of people are involved building sets, overseeing stunts, making props, fixing costumes, doing hair and makeup, running cameras, setting up lights and other environmental effects like smoke and rain, not to mention the important work of hauling people and equipment, keeping everyone fed, safe, and healthy, and doing administrative work like payroll, insurance, scheduling, ordering, and a million other things." From this, I honestly felt pretty happy, because this just meant that there's so much going on the set right now, and it's been pretty busy. Rick then goes on to compliment the actors and directors, saying, "The directors are working diligently, with seemingly endless good humor and patience. And the actors, wow, they are champions. Our young stars assure me they are having fun, and they certainly look like it on set, but they work such long hours with such dedication, it is truly awe-inspiring. As a middle school teacher, I often advise people to never underestimate what a middle schooler is capable of, and these kids are proving it. I know I've said this before, but wait until you see how great they look on screen. This, at long last, is Percy Jackson and the Olympians." Again, this paragraph warmed my heart and made me more excited for the show. After which, Rick says this: "We are filming in a wide variety of locations. As I mentioned before, we are using Industrial Light and Magic's incredible volume stage for some of the environments. Other days, we use blue screen sets or sometimes indoor sets that are constructed entirely inside a warehouse stage. Other days, we are on location, shooting actual outdoor/indoor environments. What you will eventually see in this show will be a mixture of real and digital, and the quality will be so good, you should not be able to tell which is which." The confidence that Rick has when he wrote this is incredible, and again, I really want to see this show as soon as possible. And then Rick says this: "The crew is having fun, and everyone is in good spirits, which makes it a pleasure to come to work each day. I arrived at the circus one day, which is the area where the cast and producers have their trailers when we are filming on location, and found that someone had relabeled our main trio's doors. Then, he shows this picture on a trailer that said Groovy and Peter Johnson. Underneath the picture, Rick says, Groovy and Peter Johnson. Now, I kinda want a spin-off about the adventures of Groovy Underwood. Honestly though, if he was dead serious about a spin-off about Grover, I'd actually like it." Then, Rick shows us another picture, and he says that it's a shot of the scenery near one of the outdoor sets, which to me, it honestly looks like the forest of Camp Half-Blood. Afterwards, Rick says this: "We are on track with our schedule, and everything is going according to plan, though we still have a long way to go before the series is ready. We have mostly finished the principal photography for 101, Season 1, Episode 1, and have done a good chunk of the filming of 102, but principal photography just gives us the raw puzzle pieces, which will then need to be put together with soundtrack, special effects, and editing to yield a finished product. And we still have a lot of filming yet to do to get all those puzzle pieces for the whole season. Which basically means that there's still a lot more work to be done for the show. Though, Rick said that what he says in these blog posts are purely his opinions and nothing really that official yet. He gives out these updates just so that we know what's happening currently. And then, Rick addressed a question that so many fans have asked him, and the question was, when was the show going to be released? About this, Rick said this: I hear there have been some wildly unrealistic dates floating around on social media, so I am here to moderate your expectations. Previously, I have said that my own personal best guess was sometime in 2023. I also warned you that this could definitely change. Now that I have a somewhat better understanding of the work involved, here's what I'm estimating. It's probably going to take us through December or January to film all the episodes of Season 1, which is roughly 1 month of filming per episode, 8 episodes in total. Though very often, we are filming pieces of 101, 102, or even 103 out of order on any given day, depending on what set we are using. That means post-production will begin in early 2023, when the pieces are fitted together, edited and augmented with all the special effects and sound. This process also takes months and months, and that's not even accounting for closed captioning, subtitling, and dubbing into other languages for international viewers. That takes another army of people to accomplish. Rick then goes on about it, saying, given all this, I think the most likely air date will probably be early 2024. Again, that's just my guessing. The actual release dates are determined by the studio and the streaming service, and had to take in hundreds of other factors like the release schedule for all Disney Plus shows, timing for publicity, etc., etc. The fact that Rick said that the release date might be at 2024 almost threw me off my seat because, dang, this show is going to take a long while to come out. I mean, I get it's a huge project and something really new to Rick after the Peter Johnson movies, but I didn't really expect that the release date might be 2 years from now. It's a really long wait, and how longer do we have to wait for the next 4 seasons for the next books of the PJO series? And that's not mentioning if we ever get adaptations for Heroes of Olympus, or Trials of Apollo, or Magnus Chase. Like, how long is all that gonna take? Rick must have anticipated my reaction, because he said, long wait? Yeah, it is. On the other hand, we spent 2.5 years working behind the scenes just to get this show off the ground, and I've been waiting over 15 years for a proper adaptation, so I think we can wait a little longer if it means getting the quality show we would be proud of. Another thing I have said before, but it bears repeating, this show is the most ambitious project any of us has ever done, even for our seasoned and experienced team members. A huge number of sets, complicated special effects, young actors leading the show. That all takes time, but the payoff will be worth it. I am confident of that. Again, Rick might have been reading my thoughts because he continued by saying, what about future seasons? We do not have any official word on that yet, but we are operating on assumption that we will be moving ahead with a second season and are making plans and schedules accordingly. When I know something I can share, you will hear about it right here. And then, Rick said something that I didn't really expect. He mentioned the adaptation of his latest book, Daughter of the Deep, and how the book was going to be adopted in Disney Plus as well. Rick adds that the studio has cleared them to go writing the script, which is really surprising, if you ask me, because we've heard little to almost nothing when it comes to this adaptation. I mean, we were told about it, but not as much info as what we got from the PJO show. After this revelation, Rick surprised me again by saying, our new screenwriter for the Kane Chronicles, The Red Pyramid, feature film with Netflix, is about halfway through her draft, which will be our second take on a script, and I really love what I've seen so far. Hopefully we will get this in shape for our friends at Netflix so we can move ahead to the next phases of pre-production. He finally hinted something about the Kane Chronicles adaptation on Netflix, which is the least talked about thing in the fandom at the moment, because everyone's going on about the PJO show because of the crazy updates on the castings. But anyway, this made me pretty happy, because as a fan, I didn't really hear that much news in the Kane Chronicles, and I sort of felt like Rick was prioritizing the PJO show over it through his letters. Obviously, I was wrong, because there is still progress and Rick is still working. And then, Rick talks about the Nico and Will book that he co-wrote with Mark Oshiro, which was a huge news and announcement last year, and basically made the fandom go pretty crazy, because this book is going to take place after the Tower of Nero, the last book in the Trials of Apollo series, and the so-called last book in the Riordan verse, until this announcement of a Solangelo book. But because of the TV show, not that much news was said, except for Mark Oshiro admitting that the book was almost done. Rick confirms this in his article, saying, "The Nico and Will book that Mark Oshiro and I co-authored, which has now been edited and is going into production. Title, cover, release date, all coming soon." Then, Rick mentions another TV development deal, My Life as a Child Outlaw, which is a take he wrote for an Irish myth in the Cursed Carnival, and a book in Rick Riordan Presents. Also, Rick said that it's the next book he'll publish after the Nico and Will novel. At the almost last part of his letter, Rick once again addressed something that I didn't really expect. He mentioned the Magnus chase in the Gods of Asgard adaptation. Through this, he said, "Thank you for the Norse mythology love. We have had plenty of discussions about this, and there is certainly interest in bringing Magnus to the screen, but I have intentionally delayed making a deal for Magnus, because we have so many other things in the works already. I want to get PJO TV up and running first. Then, if all goes well, I hope we can eventually get you a full Berserker level adaptation of the gang from Hotel Valhalla. Until next time, stay safe and keep reading, everyone." And that's how the letter ends. The fact that Rick hinted on a Magnus Chase adaptation has me so excited, because this is the first mention that Rick ever had on it. Over the years, there's a lot of talk about a PJO adaptation, which we're going to get in a year or two, and then we had the Kane Chronicles adaptation on Netflix, which was announced since 2019. For the Heroes of Olympus, we're expecting that to take place in a different series after the 5th season of PJO, and same goes for the Trials of Apollo, though we'll expect the Trials of Apollo after the 5th season of Heroes of Olympus. Through it all though, we didn't really expect a Magnus Chase adaptation, because it's barely hinted on. Now though, Rick's admitting that it might even get adopted, and I'm not really sure if they're going to adopt Magnus Chase after Heroes of Olympus, because the Trials of Apollo and Magnus Chase takes place in the same time period. So, how does that work out? But I think Rick would work it out. Though, if I was in his position, I'd adopt Magnus first before the Trials of Apollo, because Magnus is just 3 books, and you can give Easter eggs as to what's happening in the Trials of Apollo here and there throughout that adaptation. But that's just my take. After reading this entire letter, I had to say, it made me really hyped up about the entire fate of the Riordanverse, and I'm just so excited for the next few years to come. So, how about you? What do you think of all these updates? Let me know in the comments down below.